Was Edward II really murdered in a crumbling castle, or did someone somewhere craft a deadly lie? The rain hammered against the stone walls of Nottingham Castle, mirroring the frantic beat of Roger Mortimer's heart. He just summoned William de Montagu, Edward's closest friend, a man whose loyalty was as solid as the castle itself. But Montagu remained a wall of silence, a carefully constructed fortress of denial. Roger felt a cold dread creep up his spine. This wasn't a simple interrogation, it was a trap, a desperate gamble. He needed proof, undeniable evidence that could shatter Montagu's carefully cultivated facade. He needed to turn his friends against him, to bleed them dry with accusations of treason. The air in the great hall crackled with tension. Ralph Stafford, Robert Ufford, William Clinton, and John Neville, the cream of the young generation of knights, sat like statues, their faces impassive, their eyes guarded. Roger, as a devil for wrath, pressed them relentlessly, each question a calculated blow. Montagu predictably vehemently denied any plot, a righteous indignation that felt almost rehearsed. Roger let them go, not with a promise of leniency, but with a chilling directive: observe them, watch their every move, and use their very loyalty against them. He knew these men, these sons of his old comrades, were quick-witted and fiercely proud. They wouldn't willingly betray him, not without a fight. But they would avoid a second interrogation, a second dose of his relentless scrutiny. Then came William Eland, a local boy with a secret whispered on the wind. He spoke of tunnels, of hidden passages beneath Berkeley Castle, a labyrinth of stone and darkness leading straight into the royal apartments. A bolted door at the tunnel's end, easily opened by Edward himself, a backdoor into the heart of the kingdom. It was a revelation, a devastating twist of fate. Montagu, stunned by the sheer audacity of the plan, immediately dispatched a message, a single, urgent command: no one enters without my consent. That evening, October 19th, the castle buzzed with an unsettling stillness. Edward, feigning illness, retreated to his chamber, his physician, Pancio de Controne, dutifully in tow. Roger and Isabella, along with Sir Hugh de Turpington, Sir Simon Barrowford, Oliver Ingham, and Bishop Burghersh, huddled in Isabella's chamber, their faces grim, their voices low. The guards stationed outside were a silent, watchful presence, a barrier against the storm brewing within the castle walls. Meanwhile, in the moonless park below, 24 knights, led by Montagu, emerged from the shadows. They'd posed as fleeing from Roger's investigation, a carefully constructed deception designed to lure him into a false sense of security. Now, under the cloak of darkness, they moved with a chilling purpose, converging on the castle, a silent, deadly tide. Montagu, his face etched with grim determination, gave the order: Eland, lead the way. Eland, a man intimately familiar with the castle's hidden arteries, navigated the treacherous terrain, his hands tracing the cold stone of the crag. They moved with agonizing slowness, each footstep measured, each breath held captive by the suffocating silence. Above them, in the castle's depths, Robert Wyville, Roger's old clerk, delivered a chilling message to Edward: Roger and Isabella, along with their council, are in her chamber. Perhaps they've signaled the tunnel's opening. Edward, abandoning his pretense of illness, slipped out of bed, pulling back the drawbar on the secret tunnel's door. John Neville, mace in hand, stepped through, followed by Eland, Montagu, and the rest of the assault force. Suddenly, Sir Hugh de Turpington, a loyal servant of Roger, burst into the corridor, his cry echoing through the candlelit halls: traitors! He charged, his sword flashing in the darkness, a desperate attempt to warn Roger of the impending attack, but it was too late. Neville's mace found its mark, striking Turpington with brutal force, sending him crashing to the floor. Richard de Monmouth, Roger's steadfast companion from the tower, fell defending his lord, a testament to the deadly consequences of loyalty. The attack was relentless, a chaotic surge of steel and fury. Robert de Wacquefair struck down an usher, Richard de Cromick, as Roger and Isabella desperately fought to defend themselves. But the sheer number of assailants overwhelmed them. Isabella, realizing the futility of resistance, screamed a desperate plea: "Fair son, have pity on the gentle Mortimer, do not harm him." Roger was swiftly overpowered, bound and gagged, his authority shattered. Isabella, her face pale with horror, was forced back into her chamber, guarded by a contingent of armed men. Montagu or one of his men conducted a hurried search, discovering Bishop Burghersh attempting to escape through the latrine chute, a ludicrous, desperate attempt to flee the carnage. Barrowford and Ingham were arrested, bound and gagged, and dragged through the tunnel, joining Roger in his captivity. As the sun began to rise, casting long shadows across the castle courtyard, the situation was clear. 24 knights had orchestrated a stunning surprise attack, capturing Roger and several of his key advisors. Isabella, isolated and vulnerable, watched as her world crumbled around her. Edward, observing the unfolding chaos, saw his opportunity. He would exploit the accusations against Roger, painting him as a tyrant, a murderer, a traitor to the crown. He would claim his father's death, a death shrouded in mystery, as a deliberate act of betrayal. If Edward presented himself as a rightful king, backed by the loyalty of his knights and the trust of the realm, Roger's power would be irrevocably broken. Roger was swiftly transported to Leicester, where Edward demanded immediate execution. But Lancaster, a shrewd and influential nobleman, intervened, arguing for a trial in Parliament. Writs were hastily dispatched, summoning lords and barons to London. Roger was led to Westminster, bound and gagged, a prisoner of his own ambition. The trial was a grotesque spectacle, a carefully staged performance designed to condemn Roger and solidify Edward's claim to the throne. The charges were a litany of accusations, each one meticulously crafted to portray Roger as a monstrous usurper, ignoring the royal council, seizing power, granting himself titles, manipulating the Earl of Lancaster, orchestrating Kent's death, and enriching himself at the expense of the crown. The accusations were relentless, damning, and utterly believable. The verdict was swift and merciless. Roger was declared a traitor, sentenced to be drawn and hanged. 3 days later, Roger was dragged from his cell, dressed in the black tunic he'd worn at Edward's funeral, a chilling reminder of his downfall. He was bound to 2 horses, forced to endure a torturous journey of nearly 2 miles, his body ravaged by the uneven ground and the relentless pull of the horses. As he was hoisted onto the gallows, he delivered a final, defiant speech, confessing Kent's treachery, a desperate attempt to salvage some semblance of truth from the fabricated narrative. Then the rope was placed around his neck and he was left to swing in the wind, a stark symbol of Roger's ambition and ultimate failure. The crowd dispersed, leaving behind a naked corpse suspended between earth and sky, a grim testament to the price of betrayal. But the story doesn't end there. Isabella, spared the same gruesome fate, was placed under guard, her freedom curtailed, her reputation tarnished. Montagu, the architect of the conspiracy, emerged as a powerful figure, inheriting the earldom of March and solidifying his position at court. Edward, now firmly seated on the throne, skillfully manipulated the narrative, presenting Edward II's death as a tragic murder, a consequence of Roger's tyrannical rule. Yet the truth, as it often does, remained elusive. The official account, the death in Berkeley Castle, the burial in Gloucester Abbey, was a carefully constructed fiction, a masterpiece of deception orchestrated by Roger and Edward. The evidence suggests that Edward II did not die in Berkeley Castle. Instead, he was quietly spirited away, perhaps to a remote corner of Scotland where he lived out his days in obscurity, a shadow of his former self. The question remains, who truly orchestrated Edward II's demise? And why did they choose to perpetuate the myth of a murder in Berkeley Castle? The answer perhaps lies not in a single act of betrayal, but in a complex web of political maneuvering, personal ambition, and carefully concealed secrets. The death of Edward II was not simply a crime, it was a calculated act of power, a strategic maneuver designed to reshape the course of English history. Was it a brilliant, ruthless deception, a carefully crafted lie that served to protect the true architects of Edward II's downfall? Or was it a desperate attempt to bury a terrible truth, a tragic consequence of ambition and betrayal? And finally, could Edward III, the man who benefited most from the fabricated narrative, have been directly involved in the orchestration of the ex-king's death? The truth, like a phantom, continues to evade our grasp, lost in the labyrinth of medieval politics and shrouded in the mists of time. The echoes of Berkeley Castle linger in the shadows, a haunting reminder of the lies we tell ourselves and the enduring power of deception. Did Edward II truly meet his end in a crumbling castle, or was his death merely a convenient fiction, a meticulously crafted lie designed to rewrite history?